excellent for daiquiris. It's excellent for gimlets. It's excellent. The magic of gin in any drink is you get the fresh, bright fruit flavors. And I was selling those like crazy to people, like thinking, oh, they'll reorder in a week or two. People were reordering every other day. Think of it as an ingredient that you can use a little bit or as much as you want into making a complex, unique. And it's funny. I do feel like that drink has been getting a little more attention lately. I mean,
so keep talking about mixology more. Let's talk about Fresh Victor. Can you tell us a little bit about the concept itself? I know we're going to be tasting some drinks today, but talking about the concept and the story behind Fresh Victor, and maybe even a little bit of the inspiration of how Fresh Victor was created. Would love to know more.
I'll just tell you a little bit about Fresh Victor. Thank you all for being here. I don't know how familiar you all are. Some may be more, some less. But Fresh Victor is a line of cold pressed juice based cocktail mixers. And I always point that out to people. People like to start just describing them as juices, but they are mixers. They're cold pressed juice based mixers. So they do have some added sugar, and that the added sugars, whether it's organic cane or organic agave nectar, is generally used to balance added citrus or citrus levels and to hit a Brix level with each mixer that is specific to the intended use of that mixer. So for example, the Mexican lime and agave, it was designed to make margaritas all day, but it is excellent for daiquiris. It's excellent for gimlets. It's excellent as just a lime sour for a lot of different things. But it was meant to supplant the triple sec in a Tommy's margarita style of just, lime, agave, and tequila. And so it was designed for that drink. Whereas when I designed the lemon sour, which is one that I thought we added that on later, but I wanted that to be particularly more sour because a lemon sour as a base is a very simple kind of flavor profile, right? And you're going to use it in whiskey sours and Collinses, but beyond that, most people that will use it, I was thinking as a professional bartender, most bartenders that will use it will probably want to add another layer of flavor complexity via a liqueur, a house-made syrup. Obviously other spirits as well can do that, but those are going to be two main vehicles. So I wanted it to be able to take a little bit more sweetness than the others. And as in general, I would say all of our products are designed to be we call it Fresh Victor +1 or Fresh Victor +2. So 2 to 3 ingredients. +1 is obviously Mexican lime agave and tequila. Boom. Lemon sour and whiskey sour. Boom. So that's our +1 concept. +2 concept is then you can add something like a textural element, like a carbonated beverage, soda, tonic, champagne, something like that to add carbonated texture, a frothing agent, egg white, aquafaba, another vegan foaming agent, an aromatic or flavor complexity element like bitters, which also has a sweetness balancing purpose, and anything aromatic, an aerosol over the top, anything like that. So with those 3 ingredients, you can get, out of the 9 flavors that we have, you can get a multitude of recipes, whether they're classic, spins on classics, or originals, and including mocktails. So you've got a ton of recipes that you can make with just 2 to 3 ingredients and having it produce a high quality, fresh drink. And so that's our core concept of that. And if you're going to be adding an additional sweetener, I usually tell people you want to kind of keep that to 1/2 ounce to 3/4 of an ounce. Otherwise, you're going to start leaning sweet because that's just the nature of the product. And then you're going to have to add something to balance that additional sweetness. And of course, that's all arbitrary based on your palate, and everybody's palate is different, yada, yada. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make 3 quick recipes. The first is going to be a non-alc, then we're going to go to a low alc, and then a full alc. And through those 3, I'm going to cover a bunch of different concepts. But the core, what I just delivered, is the simplicity of it. The one thing I haven't said is another core concept is our mixing ratios, or 1 to 1 or 2 to 1. So a standard pour in the United States of alcohol is generally about 1.5 ounces, whether you get a gin and tonic or a whiskey sour or whatever. These days, it may be leaning up to 2 ounces. But from a simple perspective, the 2-to-1 ratio that we speak of is 1.5 ounces of spirit to 3 ounces of fresh Victor, or a 1-to-1, 2 ounces to 2 ounces. I personally prefer a 2-ounce margarita, 2 ounces tequila to 2 ounces Mexican lime and agave, because I like the flavor of tequila and I want it to punch through more. So that's how I always describe it, is depending on your preference for alcoholic strength and strength of flavor, you may lean on 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. And believe it or not, that simple concept of ratios sometimes takes a while to explain to a lot of people, but it's 2 parts of whatever, 2 cups, 2 whatevers. So that batches up. So you're making a large batch. You're going to make a punch for a party. You can batch up a 32 ounce or 64 ounce or even a gallon punch for a party in minutes and be ready to entertain. And then if you consider somewhere 15 to 20% dilution of that, you can add the ice or water and put it in a Cambro or whatever kind of dispenser you might have, and you have a batch that's ready to go, and you can get right back to partying and not have to worry about bartending. So it's great for that, great for entertaining.
This is because it's a mocktail, it's what sparkling cider, but the cocktail we're about to talk about is really good with any kind of a sparkling, non-alcoholic or alcoholic. So maybe we can talk about the drink itself, flavors and aromas, but also about the mocktail movement and what you're learning, what you know about it, and why it's picking up so much steam.
So the first drink I'm going to start with is what I call originally designed as the Orchard Bliss as a vodka cocktail. I'm calling this the Orchard Bliss Royale as a non-alc, because basically in cocktails, generally when you add champagne, we call it a Royale. This isn't going to be champagne, but it's going to be sparkling. And this formula, I have a few different formulas that I've found over time in making our drinks that really work on a pretty go-to level. And this one is kind of my mimosa formula, which is 4 ounces of sparkling to 2 ounces of fresh Victor. So that will work across the board. All 9 products work great with sparkling wine. We have some restaurants that use a number of them on their champagne, like on their brunch bars, to just make whatever you want. Some in particular that I like are the Cactus Pear and Pomegranate or the 3 Citrus and Mint and I also generally recommend going with a Brut style sparkling for any of those. The tweak to that would be making it a bit of a more boozy style of mimosa, which would include half an ounce to 1.5 ounces or so of spirit, depending on what it is. And sometimes I'd add a half ounce of a liqueur for another layer of flavor or something. And I've got loads of recipes for that. So if you're looking for sparkling recipes for the holidays, for celebrations and stuff, I have a bunch that I've created, and I also kind of lean on those formulas to just take what you've got and make something simple. You got a bottle of sparkling, you got whichever flavor of fresh Victor, you can mix them. You find a complementary spirit or liqueur that might work well in there, add a dash of it, add some bitters to it, and you can make it even a little bit more complex. And that's about it. Again, classic cocktails made easy, craft cocktails made easy. That's the concept. So with that said, I've got our 3 Citrus and Mint, lemon, lime, orange, and fresh mint leaf. And with that, I'm going to put 4 ounces. So these jiggers I had designed, these are standard, these are yellow, plastic clear jiggers that I found that were actually brandable. And I love them because unlike most jiggers, they are 3 ounces on the top and 1.5 ounces on the bottom, rather than 1.5 ounces or 2 ounces, smaller basically. And so with that 2-to-1 ratio in this jigger, you just fill the big side with fresh Victor, the small side with a spirit, and you're done. And it's a great jigger to use. So if anybody would like one of those, let Laura know, and we'll be happy to send you one. So I've got 4 ounces of that in there. And then, And so I'm doing it the reverse with this, and 2 ounces of sparkling. So because it's not champagne, I'm highlighting the fruit. So you can use any kind of sparkling cider. Since this is a non-alc, I find that the 3 Citrus and Mint goes really well with apple juice. So whether you're using like the Martinelli's or another brand, what I did was I just took my apple cider and I put it into my soda stream and carbonated it. And so again, this is just putting 2 ounces of this in there. And then I'm going to mix that up. And I put this in a nice big red wine glass, big and bulbous, to make it kind of festive and fun. Plenty of ice. And then you can garnish that with some fresh apple, or we use dehydrated just for the simplicity of shipping and for the purposes of this class, but dehydrated garnishes are great. You can stick one in there, stick a bunch in, and stir it, spin it around, and lots of great freshness. And again, with this, you can play with these. Obviously, you want to reverse it. You want more of the sparkling cider and less of the fresh Victor. Put it the other way around, flip flop it, play with your recipes to come up with something in your palate. But you've got lemon, lime, orange, mint, and apple all in one glass, sparkling, and it was just simple, fast, refreshing, and interesting. You could also throw in a shot of vodka, throw in a shot of soju, or white rum, or pisco. I think any of those would work well in here. Even Blanco tequila. I wouldn't put, well, you could put basically anything in here. I mean, I think an aged spirit would work well, but an unaged spirit is going to keep it nice and bright and crisp.
This is delicious, H.
Thank you.
Very
This is
good.
very good. Yeah, I enjoy it. It's great.
Any questions about the concept? This simple, non-alc drinks right now are obviously very hot. There's lots of ways of approaching that. The whole alcohol spirit replacement market can be confusing to some people, because there are many products that are very unique, and then there are those that are meant to be one-to-one substitutes. And quite frankly, I think there's a lot of products that aren't that great. There are quite a few that are excellent, and it's getting better all the time. Again, speaking as a bar owner, we have a full non-alc menu at Elixir. We use quite a few Fresh Victor products on there, and I think that our mixers as a base for non-alc drinks are great, because it gives you that fruity, sour base that's easy to play on, because we already bring some flavor complexity to the table. And so if you bring a tonic water, any of these like flavored waters, like a Spindrift or Sanzo, or some of these really higher quality and unique flavored waters, again, you're getting 2 pours and a lot of flavor, really quick and easy. And you can also do that with, I like taking teas, and like I'll make a chai tea. And when I make teas, I also like to concentrate them. So I use maybe 2 bags to a cup instead of 1, chill them, and then I'll put them again into the soda stream, turn them into a sparkling, and do that. So I'll do that with chai, make a sparkling chai, and add that to the Mexican lime and agave, and I call that a chai tide. And it's got lots of like warm baking spice type chai flavors, black pepper even, and then you add that with just a nice lime base, and you've got something that's seasonal for the holidays, and crisp but refreshing and different and non-alc and satisfying, and still feels adult, doesn't feel like a kid's drink or anything. So lots of plays with that, and let me know if you've got any questions about those. Again, I'm always developing recipes, and I've got loads of them.
This next drink, something I love about it the most is, I'm going to call it, I don't know if you've ever used these words, it's kind of a gin drink for people who aren't necessarily gin lovers. And I enjoy aromatics of gin quite a bit, but I would never probably go out of my way to order a gin drink. But this drink is an exception. So please tell us the drink itself. Let's build it, and let's talk about the different flavors and ingredients and what makes this gin drink so unique.
We'll move on to the next one, the Winter Spice Tonic, which is very similar in that approach. And I made this low alc basically by just using less spirit. It's got some spirit in it, but using less. And when you're, especially gin, what I love about gin, the magic of gin in any drink is that when it's mixed well, it impacts the overall character of the drink, but doesn't necessarily get in your face. So it kind of disappears. Like, and that's one of the things that I like to take customers that say, oh, I can't stand gin, or I don't like gin, and surprise them with a gin drink. They're like, wow, what's that? That's a gin drink, because it doesn't taste like gin, but it's got all this magical complexity to it. So when you go lower proof, especially when you're using a classic London dry gin, which tend to be in the 90 to 96 proof range, you're already at a high proof. So if you cut it back to an ounce or so, you're not getting as much proof, but you're still getting tons of flavor, and that alcohol content in that 1 ounce that you're using has the punch to push all those flavors through whatever else you're mixing in. So I'm going to start this with, and this is a light one. You know, sometimes I'd like it. The drink demands just a little bit of Fresh Victor, ½ ounce or an ounce. And in this case, we're going to use an ounce. And so I'm just going to put an ounce of cactus pear and pomegranate in here. And again, these drinks, these two, I'm just building. You know, when you build a drink, it's you make the drink in the glass you're going to serve it in. So no need to have a shaker, nice and easy. Going back to my original comment about the Fresh Victor being a mixer, not a juice, that's another point to that I tell people, especially when they're tasting it just straight, is because of that, it is meant to take on some dilution. So it's meant to be shaken, or it's meant to have get some watering down in order to lengthen the drink. And although my daughter would drink it right out of the bottle, you know, it is kind of dense. So if anybody thinks it might be sweet or too powerful, it's because it's meant to take on some dilution, which generally is going to come in the form of something that you add to it, or just in letting your ice melt. But if you're going to shake it like a regular cocktail, you're going to get that 15 to 20% dilution out of the shake. Otherwise, if in the case of this drink, we're going to add tonic to this, and so that tonic is bringing our dilution, and it's an easy build. All of that said, you know, as someone who's been in the industry for over 35 years and has owned a bar for 20, I still barely shake a drink at home, because I, like a lot of people, and I teach cocktail classes all the time. I've been doing it at Elixir for well over a decade. And as much as consumers will come to a cocktail class and pay attention and geek out and have a great time and learn everything about every little technique, when they get home to their kitchen, they would still prefer to have something easy. And that is a huge premise to what Fresh Victor is, and how, you know, we become popular and successful. I think that's it. Like, I won't even shake my own margarita. I'll pour tequila in a glass, and I'll top it with Mexican lime and agave, and I'll stir it with my finger, and I'll go back to the couch because it's damn good. And I don't mind waiting for that ice to melt a little bit to get my stuff. If I'm entertaining and I have guests over, I'll make a proper cocktail for everybody. But my own standards for myself are often less. And with Fresh Victor, you're not losing anything by doing it that way. So back to this drink. I've got my 1 ounce of cactus pear and pomegranate in there. And I'm going to top that with 4 ounces of tonic. And I'm using tonic water that I made with a tonic syrup. And again, soda water from my soda stream. So, I mean, so if it's the Fever Tree aromatic tonic in particular, I think that's a great example of where tonic water and soda water has come as a market in and of itself. The fact that there's a tonic water that already has an Angostura style aromatic bitter flavor profile to it is amazing. And, you know, you've got tonics out there that have elderflower and lavender and all kinds of different flavors now. And so just shopping the soda aisle for tonics and sodas is a great way to build your home bar library, or to use behind a professional bar in order to find great flavor that is easily accessible, very comparable to what Fresh Victor is. And I think those are things that people are discovering, and this is a great way to do it. So you get that. If you don't have it, then you can use Angostura bitters or another aromatic bitters. I actually have today some Bitter Truth aromatic bitters, so that's what I'm going to put into mine, because I just had straight classic tonic syrup, and this is going to give me those warm baking spice flavors that I want. And I'm going to ice this up. Again, plenty of ice. I'm going to get this nice and And I'm using, again, a nice big bulbous drink that has a gin and tonic style, like Spanish style gin and tonic in a big bulbous glass with lots of liquid. I'm going to add my 1 ounce of gin and mix that in. It's going to give me that pop of flavor and strength. Stir that up. And then to highlight all those flavors in there, I've got my vanilla bean. You stick in there and makes it nice and pretty. That's a pretty big one. I got some allspice berries I'm going to sprinkle in there and stir those in. And then a lemon wheel or two. So I'll stick a couple of those in there. So I've got my lemon, my allspice berries floating in there, my vanilla. Obviously, all of those things just make a really good looking drink. The longer it sits there, those garnishes will infuse some flavor to the drink. And if you just keep stacking your drink on top of the same glass and you leave your garnishes in there, you know, they'll soften up and they'll release a little bit more of the essential oils into your drink and flavor your drink a little more. But that's my winter spice tonic. And I you know, obviously we're a fruit juice based company. So I like adding our products into gin and tonics to create different fruity gin and tonics. They're not classics, obviously, but if you just add 1 ounce to 2 ounces of Fresh Victor and a number of different things, my go-to, one of my standard drinks at home is just a gin and tonic with our cucumber and lime. I'll make a gin and tonic, put a splash of cucumber and lime on there, and I think it's delicious. I drink cucumber and lime and tonic water all the time as just a non-alc drink. Again, you know, the tonic quinine is just bitter, and most tonic waters are sweetened in order to balance that bitterness. But if you get a really dry tonic and you add it to something like this that has some added sugar, it dries it very much out. If you get a really sweet one, you're going to maybe notice that sweetness. But the two things that slow us down when drinking cocktails are alcoholic strength and bitterness. So when you consider those levels within any cocktail, those are things that help us drag a cocktail out to 10 or 20 minutes in drinking it rather than slamming it. So they're almost like intentional speed bumps to keep you from drinking too fast. So when you remove the alcohol or lessen the alcohol from a recipe, you're removing a speed bump. And so adding back bitterness, and quinine is a great spot for that, or non-alc bitters, you know, then you get that sensation of having a real cocktail, because you're like, oh, I'm not going to slam this. I'm going to take my time with this, and that actually forces you to savor the drink, because you're not chugging it. You know, you're not super thirsty, and it's not, you know, you're not pouring it down your gullet.
So everybody, especially businesses, really struggled because of COVID. Fresh Victor was around before COVID, but how you adapted, the lessons you learned, and the fact that Fresh Victor is more successful now because of how you adapted during COVID. So tell us that story, and tell us a little bit about the lessons you learned from being so adaptable during COVID.
As I continue to make new recipes, you know, when COVID hit and we were doing these kind of classes, this is how I kept my bar alive, was doing cocktail classes and shipping ingredients to people for months on end, you know. And it was just as we had, just prior to COVID, we had pulled Fresh Victor from grocery shelves and decided we were going to just focus on the on-premise market and sell to bars and restaurants, because we were seeing the volume spike in bars and restaurants, and, you know, getting into retail markets is challenging. So COVID hits, and we had, our previous product was in a 32-ounce container, so we had decided to repackage into a 16-ounce, which is what you have in your hands now. And we designed all the labels, and we designed the 16-ounce package, and we said, let's sit on that for a while and let's focus on premise. And then COVID hit, and it was like, okay, our entire business just dried up. So print the labels, and within 6 weeks, we had these 16-ounce bottles available in 7 states, direct to consumer. And within 2 months, we had 48 states with direct to consumer through shipping and everything. So that was a big lesson to us in you know, how to be nimble, but also I was stuck at home and in my bar, and I shifted everything to what I was doing to sell cocktail kits to my customers from the bar. And Fresh Victor was the perfect partner for me to sell. You know, if you take a liter of tequila and a 64-ounce bottle of Mexican lime and agave, you can make 25 to 32 margaritas. And I was selling those like crazy to people, like thinking, oh, they'll reorder in a week or two. People were reordering every other day, 2 to 3 days. They were reordering that much. And but what it gave that all of that time at home and doing these Zoom classes and all did was it gave me the time, the opportunity to just focus on all of the ways you can use Fresh Victor. So I went through the like lexicon of classic cocktails, and I said, okay, what can we make with our lemon sour? What can I make with the Mexican lime and agave? And then I look at all the other more unique flavor profiles and what can we do with that? And I looked at like at this with the cactus pear and pomegranate as a cranberry substitute. So use vodka and cactus pear and pomegranate to make what I call a Cape Cod-ish. It's not cranberry, it's cactus pear and pomegranate. Or I use it in the recipe that's on the label, the cactus pear cosmopolitan. Cosmopolitans are hot right now. I just saw something in Punch yesterday, I think, was on Instagram about all the new cosmopolitan variations. Well, this is mine using cactus pear and pomegranate and instead of cranberry. So there's lots of different ways to look at these formulas. The more I made the drinks, I look at this as a formula. Different kinds of gin and tonics. Spanish style gin and tonics are huge. So it's all about the garnishes and the bulbous glass and multiple flavors and complexity. And so there's a lot of ways we can do that. And this is just one of those formulas like this. It was built off of my sparkling wine mimosa type formula.
Continuing to the next drink, you mentioned recipe quite a bit. Let's talk about ingredients and the complexity and what you're looking for as you build these drinks and you're creating these complex layers of aromas and flavor notes, and just what your process is like.
So now going on to the next and last drink. This one is, again, a basic kind of formula in that it's Fresh Victor +2. So it's our spirit and a unique ingredient. So what I did with this is actually the 1-to-1 formula. So we're going to use 2 ounces of grapefruit and sea salt to 2 ounces of brandy. And then this is where I said, you know, I don't want to add more than a 1/2 ounce to 3/4 of an ounce of an additional sweetener. So we're going to use a 1/2 ounce of fake syrup. So on that basic level, it's the 1-to-1 with the additional syrup. That formula can work a multitude of ways, whether you're in your kitchen and you want to use honey, hot honey, another syrup maybe that you make. I'd like to take teas and turn them into syrup. So you can take chamomile tea and mix it 1-to-1 with sugar and you've got a chamomile syrup. Or you can do that with chai. You can do that with black tea. You can do that with lemongrass tea. All these kind of teas can make syrups, and then use a 1/2 ounce of that. Use a 1/2 ounce of lemongrass tea syrup into a Mexican lime and agave daiquiri, and now you've got a lemongrass daiquiri. So lots of little easy things, just keeping that formula structure in mind. This one was also an effort. I did this last year for our annual holiday cocktail class and collection. And this is where the bulk of our market is for these margaritas and sours and simple drinks. That's where not only most consumers are going to use the most product and enjoy it and enjoy the simplicity of it, but it's also where our on-premise customers find the most utility in getting drinks over the bar quickly, and that's still at a high quality level with consistency from not just from drink to drink and bartender to bartender, but from unit to unit, especially for chains that have 30, 40 units. They want the drink to taste the same everywhere. But where I struggled and was more in like getting my friends in the more craft cocktail scene to think of using Fresh Victor as an ingredient. Not just thinking of it as a mixer or as a juice. Think of it as an ingredient that you can use a little bit or as much as you want into making a complex, unique drink. And so I continually am trying to do that and testing a lot of those recipes in my own bar. And this is one of those that I came across. So
next one is a full alcohol drink. we're playing with Armagnac as the base. Let's talk about Armagnac. Let's talk about flavors and aromas, how you chose this recipe. It's all really interesting, and I would love to understand better about this. It's a drink that I'm enjoying, but it wasn't. It was more of a discovery for me, and I'd love to understand it better.
When we launched the grapefruit and sea salt a couple of years ago, the obvious drink was the Paloma, right? Grapefruit and sea salt, tequila, soda water. You've got a fresh Paloma in seconds. It's delicious. It's great. It's easy. It's obvious. Then you've got other things like the brown derby and several other. There aren't that many great grapefruit drinks that people know. So how else are we going to use this? So I explored more culinary combinations of what other flavors mix with grapefruit. And quite frankly, two books that I use all the time. Oh, they're out in my garage bar. Are the Flavor Bible and the Flavor Matrix. And the Flavor Bible should point, looking at grapefruit, and you look at all the different things that pair with grapefruit, and fig came up. And I had just gotten these Lieber and Company syrups. And so I had the fig syrup, and I believe they're probably the only company that makes a fig syrup, and it's delicious. And so I came up with this drink. So I'm going to have cocktail shaker. I'm going to put 2 ounces of brandy. VSOP is what I put on the recipe. A VS to VSOP are going to be your best options for cost. Obviously, a VSOP has an older brandy base, and that's where I think you want to go. Because, with young brandies, young cognacs and armagnacs and other great brandies, you get the fresh, bright fruit flavors. And then as those brandies age, they get more into the dried fruit flavors. And so I like VSOP because we're in that midpoint where we're getting lots of the dried fruit flavors instead of that bright, fresh fruit. But I think both work well. And I have with me today a VS Armagnac from Castered. And so that's what I'm using. So it was between this and I had a bottle of Argonaut from Gallo. But I think I'm in the mood for Armagnac today. So I'm going to use this. So point is, you can use any aged brandy you want in this, but grape in particular was meant to go well with this combination. And that was my first thought, because I'm a cognac educator. I also work for the BNIC. And when I thought fig, I thought brandy, I thought cognac. And that's like my go-to connection. So that became the base spirit for this. Now, the grapefruit and sea salt, that 1-to-1 formula, I'm going to put my 2 ounces of that in there. And then simple 1/2 ounce of fig syrup. Then give that a good shake. It's going to be quite viscous with that syrup in there. So this one, anytime you're adding syrup, you can stir, you can build this drink, you can stir it, you can drink it on the rocks. I just think that this is the best way to do it. You get the proper dilution level for me, and it makes for a nice, elegant drink. And it is kind of the tail end of fig season, peak fig season in some areas. So you can get nice fresh figs, which I had some yesterday, and believe it or not, and I ate them. So I don't have a fresh fig today, but I do have dried figs in the house. So I took a dried fig like this, and I just cut it in half the long way, and then I put a nice little slit in the back so I can rest it right on my edge. And that way you can see the colors of the fig from the section, but it sits. You could also just float it in there. And of course, you're making drinks at home, you don't really need to garnish. Unless it makes, I like garnishing my own drinks, especially on a Friday night or Saturday night. makes it feel special, a little bit more of an occasion. But if it's late and I just want to drink, I'm not going to bother garnishing. Cheers. What do you think of that?
I feel like in today's world, there's always a holiday right around the corner all year long. So whether we're talking about a specific holiday or like a birthday party or just a group of friends, Fresh Victor for large groups. Let's talk about what the best way is to scale it, whether it's 5, 10, 25 people, 50 people, 100 people. What are any tips you have for using these drinks for a bigger party of people?
I definitely think batching is the way to go, especially like, Fresh Victor makes it so easy. You don't have to do any juicing. There's not a ton of cleanup. You basically get, when you scale everything, especially when you keep that 1-to-1 and 2-to-1 ratios in mind, it's real easy math, right? So you can do it on a calculator on your phone. I have spreadsheets for it, but if you're doing 2-to-1 or 1-to-1 and just 2 ingredients, you want to look at the size of the container, the biggest container you have, or the container that you have to dispense from, whether it's like a nice big glass one with a tap on the bottom, or if you're using a punch bowl or whatever it is, you want to figure out what the volume of that container is. The next thing you want to do is decide when you're going to be serving and when you're going to be prepping. So if you're going to prep it right at the time people show up and put it out, or if you want to make it ahead of time and put it in the fridge, either way, I would recommend diluting it. So again, if it's a margarita, so you make a big batch of margaritas, a perfect, like I said, whether if you use a 750 versus a 64-ounce bottle of Fresh Victor or 4 16-ounce bottles, you're going to make 25 to 32 drinks. At a 750, you're going to have a lower alcohol content. At a liter bottle, you'll have a higher alcohol content. You can factor that in and tweak it however you want. Tweak it to taste, but ultimately take that volume. And I have like a glass pitcher that's like this big, right? It's 64 ounces. So I'll plan to make a 64-ounce drink, and I'll make it without ice, and I'll dilute it. So I'll cut it back and I'll say, what's going to make 64 ounces with water included? And if you just say 20%, you can, it does take some math, but you can pare it back and add the water and just pop in the fridge. And then all you have to do is take it out and pour it in people's glasses. Or if you're going to put it in a punch bowl, you just put it in that thing, put it in a spaghetti pot in the fridge, put it in whatever you have to contain it, and just go dump it into the punch bowl, throw your ice in and garnish, and you're done. So it's all about understanding the size of the vessel that you can batch into and keep it in, and the size that how you're going to serve it. You can make a big thing and then just and put something smaller out, like a carafe, and just keep refilling it. But if you have that all batched and done ahead of time, it's so much easier. And I have recipes for that because I've made them for the press. I've made them for bars and restaurants. I've made them for my own parties. So I've got lots of those things. And when I design recipes for Fresh Victor, I generally try to create a non-alcoholic version, a low alcoholic version, and a batch recipe that's somewhere around a 64 ounce. Because a lot of those pitchers that you get at Target or supermarket or wherever are going to be 64 ounces. Sometimes it's a gallon. I have a gallon cooler that I can take to the beach. And I'll make batches of that to just boom, 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 throw some ice in it and take it to the beach or take it to the park or wherever I'm going. So for personal consumption, I generally don't see batches coming in above a gallon. But even if you make, you make a pint becomes a quart becomes a half gallon becomes a gallon. It's all easy math.
You mentioned just the huge ability to mix and match and to take all these different flavors and create so many more additional flavors and to add complexity by adding another ounce of this or an ounce of that. Flavor wise, what's on the horizon? What's some of your favorites, as well as what should we be looking for our next drink?
I think there's been I've seen a lot of uptick in interest in Asian flavors. And so I have been seeing that a lot and playing with it a lot. Again, I just saw yesterday something about that Sanzo soda, which is like a Asian flavored spindrift. They've got lychee and calamansi and yuzu. And I think those kind of unique twists on citrus can play very well into holiday citrusy drinks. They also can play well with the traditional warm baking spice. I think teas, again, are also getting big. And I think a lot of this is driven by the attention given to the non-alc sector and the non-alc products that are coming out having these kind of unique botanical complexity profiles in order to stand out from each other. So botanicals and unique citruses are two things that I see as real popular. Another thing I've been playing with and telling people is just heating anything. Like, instead of leaning into just the traditional spins on hot chocolates and Irish coffees and spiced ciders, or, which we sell a ton of at my bar, I like taking things like a whiskey sour and throwing it in a pot and just warming it up. Just warming all kinds of drinks up and having hot versions of things. That's where you're starting to see a lot of creativity is in people just taking things you're familiar with and doing it differently. And just because you're not used to something being hot doesn't mean it's not good hot. I also I'm big on this. Like this, I don't think this is trending, but like what I was saying with this, like thinking about unique flavors in drinks. Obviously, it's with the chefs in the kitchens all the time, unique combinations, and you see it obviously in the top cocktail bars. But having that trickle down to more everyday consumers and what they can do in their kitchen, that's where I think that you are seeing a lot of that being popular and trending is the idea of doing things a little bit differently and trying to find something that's different but easy.
Simply put, heated cocktails don't get enough attention. They don't get enough praise. They don't get drunken. Heated cocktails just don't get as much attention as they deserve. You mentioned hot toddy, but let's talk about really what we're all missing out on by not enjoying more hot cocktails, and any tips for our next cocktail, or which drinks we should be thinking about when it comes to a hot cocktail.
Yeah, one of the holiday drinks I did, I think 2 years ago, I call it a red hot punch or a hot holiday punch. And it's basically just the cactus pear and pomegranate, not diluted with whiskey, with an American whiskey in it. I like a bourbon, or I think I originally did it with blackened, with something that's, I think the cactus pear and pomegranate goes really well with barrel aged spirits. You get all of that vanilla, caramel, chocolate, tobacco, tar, tannins. They all work really well with the cactus pear and pomegranate. And so I'll use about 4 ounces, kind of in that mimosa formula, like 4 ounces of fresh Victor, if you have the reverse, but like this, the 4 ounces of fresh Victor, 2 ounces of whiskey, and a dash or two of Angostura bitters, or I like using a little bit of St. Elizabeth's allspice dram, and that's going to bring that allspice and that winter baking spice. And I'll put that on. I'll make that hot, and I basically, like I said, just put it in a pot and warm it up till it starts to steam a little bit, and that's it. Almost like just like warming milk. You don't want to boil it. You don't want to scald it. You just want to get it hot enough to drink. And in the bar, we'll do that in a big pot, and then we'll put it into a heated coffee dispenser and put that behind the bar. So we make a big batch that's hot, and we keep it hot, and then we can just fill it mug by mug. We also, at the other end of the bar, we have a soup tureen that we keep, but that's where we keep our hot cider in. And so we spice that, and we add that and use that for dilution. So you're adding a hot cider, or you can use a hot tea or something to fresh Victor in order to bring the temperature up, and then it's not so hot. So the key to warming is really about hitting the right temperature without scalding the product.
Obviously, every year the holidays are a fun time to be drinking with friends and family. Do you have a favorite holiday drink, whether it's seasonal, not seasonal, whether it's your all-time favorite holiday drink or a trendy drink, something popular right now? Any tips or ideas for holiday drinks?
That red hot punch is a staple around my house. I also make a a drink I call the Kentucky Pilgrim, but this is more of an Elixir signature. It's been on the menu for years, and it's a signature because I make a kind of a complex infusion of wild turkey. I infuse it with dried cranberries, cardamom, and cinnamon, and then we use that in a whiskey sour with some maraschino liqueur as the sweetener. And so that's a drink I created in 2009 when I did the bar program in New York, Dave Wondrich and others, and we were challenged to make an infusion and then make a cocktail with it. So I took that. It was pre-holidays, and I was like, I'm going to design something I can use at the bar for the holidays. So I came up with that, and it became a big hit at the bar. And over the years, each year we've played with it. So we came up with a warm version, which was actually featured in Whiskey Advocate, where I made it with cardamom bitters instead of putting cardamom. I didn't make an infusion. We just used fresh Victor with a little splash of cranberry juice and cardamom bitters and a cinnamon syrup. And we served it in a Glencairn glass. So it was a room temperature cocktail. And then we started heating it. So now you'll see on the Elixir holiday menu every year, we have the Kentucky Pilgrim as a warm, you can order it warm or cold. And again, the way that we warm it up is we always have hot water on a pot at the bar in the winter. So instead of shaking the drink for the dilution, we just put it in a mug. We build it in a mug, and we get the dilution by adding hot water. So again, that's that idea of making a whiskey sour hot, or making a hot toddy juicy, if you will. You can look at it either way. So that same kind of concept, if you think, just like I was saying before about like the hot cider, like whatever the dilution element is, it could be hot cider, it could be hot water, it could be hot tea, it could even be coffee. Instead of shaking the cocktail, you build a cocktail the way you normally would, but instead of putting ice and shaking it to get the dilution, you use the other thing hot, and you can build it and it's done. So hot water, 20% or so, just a couple ounces of hot water, and boom, you've warmed up your drink, and you've gotten your dilution, and then therefore you've got good balance. So those are, like, you think of that, even if you don't go down the path of making that big fancy infusion, you can just, again, you can use bitters. You can even take, instead of using bitters, I like to take like Benedictine and put it in a dasher bottle. And so things like Benedictine, obviously there's some sweetness there, but when you put a lot of these kind of very botanically complex liqueurs and other spirits in a dasher bottle and use them like bitters, you can get lots of flavor and complexity without, again, almost like I was saying with gin, having it be highlighted. It just kind of falls in the background, but it does its role. It fills in the flavor and makes for a complex drink.
One of my favorite things with talking with you, with hearing everything you're talking about, is variety and versions. Just really taking the traditional idea and maybe putting it on its side, or creating versions and varieties of different cocktails, whether it's smash cocktails, whether it's heated cocktails. What's in your mind now, where are you currently with different variations on cocktails?
A whiskey or brandy smash, that's like perfect for your 2-to-1 or your 1-to-1. All you need is, you've got a bottle of brandy for this drink right now. You can go ahead and make a brandy smash, 3 citrus and mint in your brandy, and boom, you're not smashing anything, but the effect is there. And that's I pitched that on a lot of national account menus and stuff too. It's funny. I do feel like that drink has been getting a little more attention lately. It's an old, Dale DeGroff had it in his first book, and one of the early things that he talked about. Not a lot of people talked about it, but I feel like it has been getting some attention lately. And let's see, would you recommend any fresh Victor for a hot toddy variation? Absolutely. The obviously the lemon sour is a simple one, and you can, it's already kind of sweet, but you could sweeten that with a little touch of honey, and go down that angle of a classic toddy. The 3 citrus and mint, again, because of all the citrus notes, and I think the mint heats up real well, and that product works really well with barrel-aged spirits. The cactus pear and pomegranate like I said, the red hot punch is kind of a bit of that. And, you know, you could, if you're looking at a toddy as a formula, again, being just whiskey or whatever barrel-aged spirit you want, and hot water and lemon as a core formula. You can take that down a different avenue of different flavors. The pineapple and ginger in particular works great because when the ginger is heated up, that spice really shines and you know, feels great on your throat. I think of hot toddies as most people would with barrel-aged spirits, but I do think gin works wonderful in hot drinks. It really kind of allows the botanicals to shine, and especially in citrus. So there's a great opportunity there for that. Reposado and añejo tequilas play nice into that as well. I like funky flavors too, so a good agricole rum or Jamaican rum, or even baijiu. I did some work with Ming River for a while. They brought me I did a trip with them to China and studied baijiu, and I think that their product in particular has a nice pineapple note to it, and it plays really well with allspice. So a little bit of Ango, baijiu, and pineapple and ginger, hot. All right, cheers. I hope you all have a great holiday season, and thank you all for being here with us today and joining us. We've been doing this every year for the last few years, and we'll do it again next year. Maybe we'll throw in a summer version.